Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior. Welcome back to another Mortal Kombat 11 video. Now in today's History of video, we will be talking about the gods of the Mortal Kombat series, their respective roles in the universe, and how exactly did they come to be. What are their fates? As there are in fact many different gods in the universe, but a majority of them are in fact left underdeveloped and somewhat untouched. So in today's video, I will strictly be focusing on the gods in the main continuity. The reason why I say this is because there's actually a few that exist outside the main canon, but I feel like they deserve their own video. So here I will strictly be focusing on the gods, not the elder gods mind you, as I've already made that video, the roles they play in the universe, and how exactly have they impacted the series. But now first things first, how did they come to be? Well, the gods were formed after a huge cataclysmic battle. Before their creation, at the very dawn of time itself, there existed two different primordial deities, the first being the Eater of Worlds, the one being, and the second being the divine elder gods. These two sides would clash on multiple different occasions, with the elder gods coming up short. That is, until they formed the Kami-Dogu. When they realized that the one being was far too strong for them to battle physically, they would form these Kami-Dogus to separate his physical being, leaving it in fragments. And as we all do know, these fragments would grow and flourish into the realms as we know it. So by defeating the one being, the Mortal Kombat universe would be born, and thus life was created. Now at first, the elder gods were rather hesitant with the life formed from the one being's body, but didn't wish to eliminate it. So here, the elder gods would create gods that would interact and guide these mortals in the right direction. So each realm was assigned one or more gods. So with this being said, let's talk about each of these assigned gods of the realms, and what have they done in the series. Now first, let's go to Earthrealm and talk about an OG character of the series, Raiden. Now without a doubt the most infamous god of the series, and a character that is in fact actually very pivotal to the reboot, as well as many other events. The Thunder God is one of the oldest beings around, having been created at the dawn of the realms. He has honestly been there for everything: the birth of the realms, the clash with the fallen elder god Shinnok, and the formation of the Mortal Kombat tournament. When the tournament was created, he was chosen by the elder gods to be Earthrealm's governing advisor, and was the individual to seek out talented fighters of the realm to defend it. So Raiden has met many legends over the course of time. The Great Kung Lao, Bo Rai Cho, and Liu Kang are names that come to mind. He was there to defend Earthrealm against Shao Khan, the last line of defense when the Deadly Alliance arose, and was the one to save the future by sending a message to his past self. His existence is pivotal to the reboot and the series as a whole, and whilst he may sit on the sidelines for a lot of the series, he is involved in a lot of mortal affairs. Unlike the elder gods who do not sully their hands, Raiden shows a lot of compassion and care for the mortals. The two biggest examples of this is one in the original timeline, where he sacrifices his own elder god status to battle the Deadly Alliance, and finally in Mortal Kombat 11, where he fuses and sacrifices his own godhood with Liu Kang in the final battle against the Titan Kronika. He is selfless in many ways, and for all of his faults, Raiden has definitely tried to do the best he can for the realm, even if that means handing it over to someone else. During the climax of Mortal Kombat 11 and Aftermath, it is believed that after passing his godhood to Liu Kang, that he now serves as an advisor to Liu Kang, helping him weave the hourglass of time in the right direction. So Raiden accepts his mortality and chooses to ride it out to the very end, even if he does perish. Of course 11's ending is somewhat ambiguous, with the two different endings it does have, but for now we will be sticking to the good ending, as it seems like much more of a definitive ending to Mortal Kombat 11. Now our next god is in fact Fujin, brother of the Thunder God Raiden. Fujin is the heart of the storm, a little more human than his counterpart from living amongst mortals. Fujin has in fact been around as long as Raiden has in the lore, wanting to do his best to ultimately protect and preserve Earthrealm. He, much like Raiden, was there for everything. Even he himself participated in the battle against Shinnok. After these events, he was assigned the mission of guarding the Amulet of Shinnok, but did sadly fail during the events of Mythologies, where he was presumed by many to be dead. However, he would make his return in Mortal Kombat 4, where he would battle the fallen elder god once again, as he laid waste to all of the realms. Fujin would later go on and become the protector of Earthrealm when Raiden had become an elder god, but this was a title he held for a very short amount of time, as after Liu Kang perished at the hands of the Deadly Alliance, Raiden would become a god once again. He would even stand against his brother at the end of the original timeline, as Raiden had been corrupted. Now with Armageddon ultimately bringing on the end of the original continuity, in the reboot he does in fact have more of an active role, having appeared in the Mortal Kombat X comic book series, the Mortal Kombat X game, and finally Aftermath, where he battles against Kronika and helps play a part in Liu Kang's plan to rewrite the Hourglass of Time. Whilst he may seemingly fall during the Aftermath expansion, his sacrifice was for a better future, and whilst he himself may not be as present as Raiden has been, he's always been a well-respected individual amongst the Pantheon. Now onto our next god, and he is the newest god in the series, Fire God Lou Kang. Born a mortal, Liu Kang is unlike any other god in the series. Having always been trained to become a champion of Mortal Kombat, Liu was always destined for greatness, but none could have expected the canonization of Fire God Lou Kang. It always seemed like a far-off dream, but after having died twice, battled the denizens of hell and his evil counterparts, Liu Kang had earned his right to godhood. With the realms on the brink of destruction, Raiden realized that they needed something more than a champion of Mortal Kombat or even a god, so he infused his own being with his protege, and in turn Liu Kang became a god. He would go on to defeat Kronika's army and finally the Titan herself, but things weren't over just yet. Upon her defeat, Liu Kang would lay claim to the Hourglass of Time and begin to forge a new universe, a better one in his image. Of course, with Aftermath, the new Guardian does lay his faith in Nightwolf and Fujin, as they are to secure Kronika's crown, something he does obtain later on in his ending in Aftermath, to which he then resets the timeline, and is now not only the weaver of the Hourglass, but now Guardian of Earthrealm. So Liu Kang now plays the role that Raiden did in the original continuity. Liu Kang's story is definitely one that has changed and fluctuated from his fall and later rise. From battle to battle, he's proven himself time and time again, so I am intrigued to see what the future holds for the god. Now onto our next trio of gods. I will simply refer to them as the mythology gods, because these individuals are never referred to by name at any point in time. For those of you who don't know, in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, there were 4 different elemental gods that were assigned the mission of protecting the location of Shinnok's amulet, with Fujin in fact being one of them, being the god of wind. There was the god of fire, the god of earth, and finally the water god. Now as Fujin went on to become a playable character, the other trio were not so fortunate, only serving as bosses in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. They would later fall and perish during the events of Mortal Kombat 4, where Shinnok laid an assault across the realms, including the realm of heaven. So the fire, earth, and water gods would die shortly after their debut, with Mythology sadly being the only game they appeared in. Now I feel like it is worth mentioning here, but Elder God Kenshi. People would probably decapitate me if I didn't mention him, but Elder God Kenshi, whilst really cool in concept and design, is a mobile exclusive character, and thus is not tied to the main canon in any way, shape and form. Now that we've covered the gods of Earthrealm, let's move on to our next realm, Edenia. Argus, one of the very first gods of the realm. Argus was appointed the realm of Edenia, did oversee it for thousands of years. Being its appointed guardian, he would guide it in the right direction, and by doing so, the realm of Edenia did in fact flourish, becoming a beautiful haven and realm, one that many did envy. Now during his time and service, Argus would come across an oracle, the beautiful Delia, and not long after they met, they would marry and have 2 children, that being Taven and Daegon. Now whilst all seemed well, Argus and Delia received horrific images of the end days, where chaos reigned, and the combatants of each realm became far too strong to be bound by the rules of Mortal Kombat. Knowing that this anarchy would bring on the end of all, he would attempt to stop this with his wife Delia by preparing the Pyramid of Argus and the Fire Elemental Blade. He believed that only the Chosen could absorb the power of such a powerful being and bring peace across the realms, preventing a true Armageddon from happening. And to somewhat guarantee that such power would fall into the right hand, he would sacrifice his sons, cocooning the pair for the Day of Reckoning, and after this, he would retreat from the realm, leaving it in the hands of Jared and Sindel. But whilst he was out of the mortal plane, his lust would ultimately get the best of him, as he would travel back to the mortal plane and have an affair with an Edenian woman. Said individual would then go on to give birth to a child, that of course being the demigod Rain. Ashamed of his actions, Argus denied Rain's existence and godhood, thus leaving him as Edenia fell to the hands of Shao Khan. Years would pass by, and Argus would get a surprise visit from Daegon, awakened before his scheduled time. When the son learned of the suicidal quest he was placed on, he killed his mother and father in cold blood, marking the death of the god in the original timeline. And it does seem like history would repeat itself in the rebooted continuity. Daegon. Now as mentioned, Daegon is a demigod and son of Argus. Being half Edenian, he has an affinity for magic and does age slower than your normal mortal. Now being born into the family of Argus meant that Daegon himself was destined for greatness, but with Armageddon having caught Argus's attention, it threw Daegon off off his course, and thus he was cocooned for the Battle of Armageddon. But unlike his brother Taven, he was awakened before his appointed time, and because of this, something snapped in Daegon's brain. His early awakening had mentally broken him, altering his personality, and it turned him into a vicious animal. So when he learned of what his father had done to him, he naturally felt betrayed. So needless to say that Daegon felt very justified in killing both his mother and father. After these events, he would set up the Red Dragon organization and prepare for the arrival of Blade, wishing to still fulfill his destiny and to somewhat once again defy his father's beliefs. Due to his change of nature and personality, Daegon would actively go out his way to try and kill Taven, attempting to hunt him down before he awoke. But this is a mission he did fail in, because in the original timeline, Taven was somewhat able to fulfill their father's legacy, killing his own brother. Now Daegon does appear once again in the rebooted timeline, but it's in a very small role in the Mortal Kombat X comic book series, where he's approached by Prince Goro, who wishes to repair his arms, as the fallen Shao Khan has shown interest in the regenerative abilities of Onaga. So sadly, outside of this, Daegon has not actually played a key role in the rebooted timeline. Taven. Now there isn't too much to say about Taven here, as I've already touched on him a fair bit in the Argus and Daegon section. He was a fabled child of destiny, believed to be the child that would bring peace across the realms. But of course this tale would take an ugly turn, as during the beginning of Mortal Kombat 9 and end of Armageddon, it is revealed that Shao Khan was the individual responsible for defeating Blaze. So Taven wasn't able to fulfill his quest, and by the end of it he was already filled with regret, having lost his own family and killed his own brother. Taven is yet to make a proper appearance in the rebooted continuity, but he has made cameos in Kida's and Kenchi's ending. So the idea does exist, it's just yet to be tapped into. Now our next Edenian god is in fact Raiden. Now as briefly mentioned, Raiden is a demigod and son of Argus, born to a mortal woman and neglected his godhood from birth. Raiden had no idea of his origins for a very long time, because shortly after he was born, his mother died, and Edenia would fall into ruin at Shao Kahn's hands. During the fall of Edenia, he was fortunately saved by a handful of freedom fighters. So from the day he was born, he was brought up under a strict hand, with his adoptive father being the general of the group. Now it wasn't long until his fellow Edenians realized his talents and the incredible strength he possessed. Now whilst being amongst the group, when he realized that he deserved better due to his supernatural capabilities, he would turn on them, selling them out to Shao Kahn for a general position at his side. And as Shao began to conquer the realms, it's here where he would learn of his godhood and origin. Realizing that he was a son of Argus, he would attempt to join the Pantheon, but when he searched for his father, he learnt that Argus had in fact been killed. So as he dug deeper into his bloodline and learnt of his half-brothers Taven and Daegon, as well as their quest at the Pyramid of Argus, he would attempt to sabotage them by hunting them down, as this was a quest he was excluded from, and he really wanted to kind of spit on his father's grave by being the one to absorb the power of Blaze. Now similar events would transpire in the rebooted continuity, with Raiden learning of his origins and attempt to join the Pantheon of Gods once again. So Raiden still strives for power in the current continuity, wanting his strength and power to be acknowledged by the Pantheon. Now let's go to the Netherrealm. Now historically, the Netherrealm has only ever had one true god, and that is in fact Lucifer. Much like Argus, Raiden and Fujin, he was the appointed guardian at the very dawn of time, so he has seen everything and seemingly did play a part against Shinnok during his first attack on the realms. So he is an ancient deity and has been around for a very long amount of time, but there's a reason why we do not hear of Lucifer. You see, after Shinnok's defeat, Lucifer was assigned the mission and job of incarcerating the fallen Elder God and to torture him for a millennia, so he was punished for his crimes and betrayal of the Elder Gods. So for many years, Lucifer got a lot of pleasure from torturing the Elder God, but this would all cease to be very soon. During Shinnok's time in the Netherrealm, he would reach out to a demon by the name of Quan Chi, and together they were able to overthrow Lucifer's position and slay the god. So since these events, the Netherrealm has been left without a true guardian, which is why individuals like Quan Chi and Shinnok are able to control the Netherrealm demons and manipulate them under their will. There's no one to step in the way and stop them. Now onto our next realm, Outworld, and its seeming god, Shao Khan. Now this is definitely one that can be argued about, so I'm going to briefly touch on his history and how did this come to be, as it seems like there might be some changes from that of the original timeline to that of the current continuity regarding his own godhood. Now much like the other deities I've talked about here, Shao Kahn's existence goes as far back as the birth of the realms itself, and he was assigned the realm of Outworld and was its guardian for a very long amount of time. Now unlike the other guardians of the realm, there was already a deity that kind of matched the power of the gods, if not so surpassed it, and that was the Dragon King Onaga. Now for many many years, Shao served as an advisor to the Dragon King, guiding him in the right direction, and this allowed the realm to somewhat flourish, but he would quickly stray away from his role. You see, Shao Kahn was tainted by the subconsciousness of the One Being. Although physically dead, his power and existence somewhat lived on through mortals, and from here a somewhat spiritual side would begin to tempt powerful individuals, wanting them to merge the realms for his return. Now at first, the One Being did try to tempt the Dragon King Onaga, but Onaga's tunnel vision for immortality prevented him from falling under the influence of the Eater of Worlds. So the One Being would turn his sights towards Shao Kahn, and slowly but surely begin to corrupt and alter the god, having him even turn against Onaga, and from here, Shao Kahn would become a tyrant, becoming the overlord and emperor of the realm, and rule it with an iron fist. With Onaga now gone and dead, he would follow through with the One Being's plan of attempting to merge the realms together. So many fell before him, and he was successful on his journey, having merged the likes of Zartera, Vaeternus, and even Edenia with his own realm. It was only up until he clashed with Earthrealm where his plans started to go sideways. Being defeated by Liu Kang twice made the merging of realms that much more difficult, as Edenia was now freed of his control. This forced him to go into hiding for a while, as his clone was killed by the Deadly Alliance, and he really did have to plan his return, something he did during the Battle of Armageddon, to which he was successful in defeating the fire elemental Blaze. Here he was able to absorb his power, become the One Being, but even Shao couldn't foresee the future, and Raiden was able to reboot the timeline by sending a message to his past self. Now in the rebooted continuity, all things do seemingly stay the same, although the butterfly effects created in Mortal Kombat 9 causes a different outcome of events, such as Shao Kahn being destroyed at the end of the game. Of course, he would later resurface during 11 and cause quite a bit of havoc during the events of Aftermath, but his fate is ultimately the same, this time falling at the hands of Shang Tsung. Now to touch on his godhood, as it has always been somewhat questionable, Shao Kahn's godhood was revealed and confirmed in Mortal Kombat Deception, being said to be the same species as Raiden and Lucifer, both being gods in their own right, and guardians and protectors of their own realm. Although he's not referred to it directly, it is believed that he is a god, which does explain his incredible power, as well as his very distinct appearance. But it is somewhat questionable with what his status is in the rebooted continuity, considering some of the retcons that have gone on hand. Now this is one that hasn't been touched on, so for now I still keep him in the god category, although it is questionable. Now our next realm will in fact be the Chaos Realm, and this is where things get a little bit hazy and quite difficult to cover. Now we do not truly know the name of the god of chaos, but we know that when the god arrived there, he was the one responsible for turning the Chaos Realm into what it was. The Chaos Realm was like any other normal realm, but instead of the god guiding it in the right direction, he caused a massive explosion across the realm, referred to by the Chaos Realmers as the Tempest. This in turn gave birth to the nature of the Chaos Realm, as well as their religion. The Chaos Realm Guardian was honestly responsible for the birth of the Chaos Realm as a whole. Without him, the Chaos Realm could have in fact turned out like Earthrealm. Now I've purposely saved this section till last, as it hasn't been confirmed, but the god's name has been somewhat Easter egged as Ko Chao, and it's believed that after the Tempest explosion, that the god retreated from the Chaos Realm to the Netherrealm, and during the conquest mode of Deception, one of the quests where Shujinko has to defeat all of the Black Dragons says that upon doing so, Ko Chao will awaken. Now the reason why I somewhat question the name is because Ko Chao may in fact derive from Coin Challenge, an Easter egg much like Ermac with Error Macro. It is a name used by Chaos Realmers, who are individuals that do speak backwards. Now unfortunately it's never elaborated on, so we haven't had a proper true canonical clear name for the god of chaos, but I did want to talk about it here. Now onto our final realm, the Order Realm. Now unfortunately there are no details about the god of order, or what may have been his fate. There are no details of a main canon god, so unfortunately I cannot touch on the canon god of order, as there's not a true one right now. In the movie spin-off novel there was an individual known as Abacus, but that lies in its own continuity and will be touched on in next week's video, where I do talk about the novel in a bit more detail. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, that has been it for the history of the gods. I hope you have enjoyed this and learnt more by doing so. This was quite a challenge to put together, as there is a lot of information I needed to cover, and I wanted to give each god a set amount of time where I could cover them in a fair amount of detail. So I apologize if I've left out any tidbits, but I wanted this to be the history of the gods, where I could talk about all of them in unison. But yes guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video once again. There's plenty of more Mortal Kombat content on the horizon, and next week I will be diving into Rambo, so you definitely want to keep an eye out for that if you aren't familiar with him. But for now, as always guys, before this video wraps up, if possible let's try getting it to about 500 500 likes, and please do not forget to tick that bell as it will keep you up to date with all of my content. And as always, please comment, like, subscribe and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care and I'll see you all next time.